Hey guys, this is Karthik here and welcome to Digit.in. So today I have the HP Pavilion Laptop 13 with me right here, and it's the HP's mainstream thin and light laptop which has a lot of interesting things going on for it. We will be taking a look at all of that in detail, but before we do that, please make sure to hit the subscribe button and also press the bell icon so that you don't miss out on any of our future videos. Now that we've done that, let's get started. So the HP Pavilion Laptop 13 is powered by the 11th generation Intel Core i5 1135G7 processor. It's got 16GB of DDR4 memory on board, a 512GB NVMe SSD, and there's a 13.3-inch Full HD display on the front. Besides that, you also get a 3-cell 43Wh battery inside and a fingerprint reader on the front that sits separately on the deck. Now quickly let's just jump into the performance section to see how all these specs tie in together and the kind of performance that you would get out of this laptop on a day-to-day basis. For the performance, we'll be taking a look at some of the benchmark numbers first. So the 11th Gen Core i5 processor in this laptop is coupled with the Intel Xe graphics. It comes standard on this SKU and we don't have any word about the AMD or the Nvidia variant on this laptop just yet. I ran all the benchmark programs on Windows best performance mode to get the best results. Just putting it out there so you guys know. The Intel Core i5 1135G7 is a quad-core CPU based on 10nm process. It has 8 threads and has a max turbo frequency of 4.20 GHz on paper. On PC Mark 10, the Pavilion Laptop 13 managed to score 4704 when we tested its office-centric benchmark tool. The score is higher than the Mi Notebook 14 Horizon Edition that was powered by the Intel Core i7 1071U processor. On Cinebench R20, the Pavilion laptop scored higher than what the Dell XPS had managed to score with its Intel Core i7 1065G7 when we tested it. I got similar results on Cinebench R15 and R11.5 when I tested those two programs on this laptop, and the results were better than most of the laptops that we had tested here at Digit on the similar price point. So the processor on this laptop is definitely no slouch. For testing the GPU, I loaded the 3D Mark's Firestrike benchmark and ended up with a score of 2909, putting it high up on the list of mainstream laptops that we have tested here. I was just glad that I was able to run most of the benchmarks on this laptop without any hiccups. It is always a good sign because most of the laptops in this price range tend to just break down when you run these benchmarks. For the real world test, I entered the testing process with an open mind. I had my expectations in check in terms of what the laptop can and cannot do in terms of the day-to-day performance, and honestly, I was just pleasantly surprised by the kind of performance that I was getting out of this laptop. The laptop managed to hold its own without giving up on me at any point. It was easily able to handle the Chrome browser with about 25 to 30 tabs spread across multiple windows. So switching between them was also a breeze, and it was comfortably sitting in the background while I was working on something more resource intensive like say photo editing. I also did some gaming on this laptop, or well, you can say I tried gaming on this laptop, but obviously it was not able to hold its own. I mean, you can still play games like Grand Theft Auto 5, but please don't expect any insane performance out of this laptop. It's not a gaming laptop by any means, and that's why we didn't put it through our usual set of tests that we perform on dedicated gaming machines. Lighter esports titles like CSGO and Apex Legends are playable on this laptop as long as you don't crank up the settings. It will get noticeably warm to touch on both the front on the keyboard and the bottom, but isn't anything major. It never got to a point where I felt uncomfortable using it. So lastly, I tested the 512GB NVMe SSD on this laptop using the Crystal Disk Mark test. And I ran all the sequential read-write tests along with a bunch of other tests, and the results for that will be displayed on your screen right now. It is not as fast as some of the other machines like HP's own Spectre X360, but it's serviceable for a mainstream laptop at this price. Moving on to the display, the HP Pavilion Laptop 13 comes with a 13.3-inch Full HD IPS display with an aspect ratio of 16:9. You get a 720p HD camera on the front, which is decent, and the display is surrounded by plastic bezels on all four sides. We used Calman's Portrait Display Color Meter to scratch the surface of this display and pull out a lot of details. First of all, I'd like to mention that the display is highly uncalibrated out of the box, with some delta E values being way off. The delta E value, for those of you who don't know, is basically the difference between what the actual value should be versus the value that we got on this particular laptop when we tested. We are looking at an average grayscale delta E value of 3.5, and the color checker analysis tells us that some colors are way off. We recorded high delta L values for some darker shades that make them look very pale. The blue color, for instance, had a lot of issues. The delta E numbers are way off for those scenes involving the color blue, like the blue sky, the blue flowers, and more. Sadly, even a manual color calibration won't completely fix the issue. So what does all those values that we pulled out of the color meter actually means for your day-to-day usage? Well, first of all, it's very evident that the display on this laptop is not exactly ideal for your day-to-day color-sensitive work. The panel was only able to reproduce 60% and 39% of sRGB and DCI-P3 color space accurately, which means there are better laptop displays out there for your day-to-day media consumption like watching Netflix content, etc. Overall, I think the display on the HP Pavilion laptop is pretty decent in its class. Yes, it could be better, but it's perfectly serviceable for day-to-day usage. The Full HD resolution display makes up for some crisp visuals on this smaller 13.3-inch panel, and it has great viewing angles too. That being said, there are certain things that I don't like about this laptop, so I'm just going to be talking about all of them right now. First of all, it's glossy, which is not very desirable or even necessary for that matter since there's no touchscreen input. On top of that, the maximum brightness of 269 nits makes it quite difficult to use the laptop outdoors. Outdoor visibility can definitely be a pain for users, and direct sunlight will completely wash out the display. The HP Pavilion laptop packs a 3-cell 43 Wh battery in its relatively small chassis. Yes, I wasn't expecting some crazy times here, but the battery life felt pretty short. On Wi-Fi and at peak brightness, I was only able to get about 5 hours of real-world usage with the performance mode set in favor of the battery. My usage on a typical workday includes things like researching and writing stories on website, editing image for the same, constant pings on WhatsApp and streaming music via Bluetooth. So I would suggest you carry a charger every time you step outside with this laptop. You can get a little bit more usage out of it by lowering the screen brightness, but don't expect it to do some crazy numbers. In the PC Mark 10 Modern Office battery life test, the HP Pavilion laptop lasted for 394 minutes. But what's good about the battery, however, is that it doesn't take too long to fully charge. Charging the laptop from a dead state to full capacity takes a little over an hour and a half. Thanks to the HP Fast Charge, you can charge up to 50% of the battery in just 30 minutes. The laptop can also be charged via USB-C, but it ships with a proprietary barrel charger. The HP Pavilion Laptop 13 features a standard keyboard with backlit keys. You can't change the colors of the light, but you get an option to adjust the brightness. The keys are mushy and shallow, which means your key presses are probably going to be less satisfying depending on the kind of keyboard you're coming from. That being said, it's not a bad keyboard by any means and it's very easy to get used to. The touchpad, as you can see, is quite small. It feels cramped in the small form factor and you might want to consider investing on an external mouse. The touchpad itself is very accurate and I had no issues gliding my fingers over it. It supports Windows precision drivers, so the cursor control is smooth and gestures are very reliable. Moving on to the ports, there are two USB-A ports and a USB-C port that are compatible with both power delivery and DisplayPort. You also get a HDMI 2.0 port and a headphone microphone combo. There's also a microSD card reader, which during my testing, I was able to transfer about 1 GB of files in roughly about 11 seconds. I'd say the laptop has plenty of ports in its small chassis. Coming to the design of this laptop, I have a lot of good things to say about this right now. So the Pavilion branding usually reminds me of one of those older laptops that are, big and bulky, that are basically made to reflect their price tags. But this one, on the other hand, is actually completely different. The laptop's aesthetic, however, took me by surprise. It instantly made me think of HP's more expensive laptops from the Spectre series that are second to none when it comes to design. I absolutely love how Pavilion Laptop 13 has inherited many of the design features of the Spectre and even the Envy series. HP has done a great job and the end result is a product that looks classy. The laptop just looks more premium than what its price tag would suggest. It only weighs 1.24 kgs, which makes it very comfortable to carry around. Its thin and light profile makes it even better to just throw it in the laptop sleeve or carry around without any hassle. But as someone who has spent a lot of time with this laptop, I do have a couple of things to point out. First of all, the laptop is made out of plastic and that's particularly noticeable because it is susceptible to flexing. Push down on the center of the keyboard deck and you'll notice a substantial dip. The inner bezels around the display are also made out of plastic, which looks cheap on an otherwise steril looking laptop. The bottom chin is also slightly thicker than the other sides. The lid of the laptop opens to a max angle of about 140 degrees. The base of the laptop also lifts up ever so slightly when the lid is opened all the way. It's nothing significant but definitely opens up some space for air to escape. The HP Pavilion Laptop 13 also comes with dual speaker placed at the bottom of the device. These speakers are tuned by B&O and they get decently loud. They don't come near anywhere close to the speakers on some premium laptops but are good enough to fill your ears when you're not using a pair of headphones. So overall, this is an extremely well-built machine that will impress you the moment you look at it. It's actually quite refreshing to see all these mainstream laptops getting a slick and classy look. In fact, I would go as far as to say that it compares to the Dell XPS 13, which we absolutely love for its build quality. It's that good. The HP Pavilion Laptop 13 is priced at Rs 71,999 in India. And at that price, you get an Intel Core i5 1135G7 with Intel Xe graphics, a good Full HD display, 16 GB of RAM and 512 GB of M.2 NVMe SSD. All that is wrapped in a chassis that looks and feels great to use. This laptop also earned some brownie points from me for inheriting some premium features from the Spectre and the Envy series as well. What I don't like much about this laptop, unfortunately, is its battery life. HP can definitely put in more work to make it last a little longer. I can get used to the small touchpad, but the battery life is definitely not something that I can turn a blind eye towards. But barring that, the HP Pavilion Laptop 13 is just perfect in almost every aspect and it's just a no-brainer in this price point. Well, that was it for the review of the HP Pavilion Laptop 13. If you like this video, then be sure to give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends or someone who's looking to buy a new laptop. And well, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.